There once was an artist who spent their entire life painting with colours mixed by others. They created beautiful works, yet somehow they never felt quite right, never captured the vision that lived vividly in their imagination. This artist carried a restless spirit, a yearning to express something indefinable yet essential, something that danced just beyond the reach of conventional pigments and traditional techniques. From childhood, they showed remarkable talent with a brush, an intuitive understanding of form and composition that earned praise from teachers, amazement from parents. But with each compliment came subtle direction, gentle corrections that slowly shaped their natural instincts into acceptable forms. They learned which colors were considered sophisticated, which subjects were worthy of attention, that art must follow rules established by masters who had painted centuries before. They learned to see the world through borrowed lenses, to interpret reality through filters handed down by teachers who themselves had never truly learned to see with their own eyes. Each mentor, well-intentioned, accomplished, passed along not just knowledge and technique, but also limitations disguised as wisdom, restrictions masquerading as refinement. Art school became a dismantling of their natural vision, replacing instinct with instruction, wonder with methodology. They learned about color theory that reduced the infinite spectrum of experience into predictable formulas, about composition rules that confine the wild mathematics of beauty into geometric constraints. They studied the masters with reverence, bordering on worship, copied their techniques until their own hand forgot its original impulses. Professors spoke of finding your unique voice, while teaching everyone to speak the same approved dialects. For years, the artist created art that others praised, paintings that fit perfectly into galleries and expectations, work that earned approval from critics, who spoke in languages that felt foreign to the artist's soul. Their paintings hung in exhibitions, collected, sold, admired. Reviews called their work competent, polished, accomplished. Words that felt like elegant cages. Success arrived in forms that should have brought satisfaction. Gallery representation, steady sales, recognition within the art world. Yet each achievement felt hollow, like reaching the summit of the wrong mountain. They had learned to paint what others wanted to see, rather than what they themselves actually saw. They developed a reputation for technical excellence, for commercial reliability. But though collectors could spot their work from across a room, the artists themselves often walked past their own paintings without recognition, as if they had been created by a stranger, wearing their signature. Late at night, when the world was quiet, they would stare at a blank canvas, and wonder why their truest vision remained invisible, trapped behind layers of learned limitation. In those vulnerable hours, they could sense something stirring. Colors with no names. Compositions that followed no rules. Expressions demanding techniques not yet invented. They began to dream of paintings never created, yet somehow remembered. Visions of hues that existed nowhere in their learned palette. Scenes that captured not just how things looked, but how they felt, how they breathed, how they pulsed with unseen life. These dream paintings haunted their waking hours, creating a growing dissatisfaction with the gap between what they painted and what they truly saw. So they started keeping a secret sketchbook, hidden from galleries, hidden from critics. Here, they tried to capture these elusive visions, but even in private, their hand remained trained to conventional movements, their eye programmed to see through borrowed filters. The more they tried, the more they realized they had been taught to edit reality before it ever reached their canvas, until one dawn, frustrated beyond endurance by another night of impossible colors, they swept every borrowed pigment from their palette and began mixing colors from the raw materials of their own experience. They ground their grief into deep purple, containing every goodbye they had ever spoken. They mixed joy into golden hues, holding the laughter of every perfect moment. Truth emerged as colors unnamed in any book, shades that existed only through their unique way of being in the world. They blended the silver of morning solitude with the crimson of passionate conviction, the green of growing wisdom with the blue of endless questioning. The first stroke of these authentic colors sent shockwaves through them, as if they had been painting with their non-dominant hand all their life, and suddenly switched to their true grip. The brush moved differently, responded to impulses they had forgotten, created marks that breathed with their own life force. Suddenly, they could see not just what was expected, but what was actually there. The subtle shadows between certainty and doubt, the luminous spaces where hope lived quietly, the complex interplay of light and darkness present in every moment, but invisible through conventional vision. Each brushstroke revealed layers of reality they had been taught to ignore, dimensions of beauty beyond the narrow spectrum of acceptable perception. They painted the sound of rain as rhythm, captured the texture of silence as presence, made visible the invisible connections between all things. Their technique shifted organically. Brushes moved in patterns never taught. Textures emerged from necessity, not tradition. Compositions grew from the architecture of their inner landscape. When they stepped back, they realized they hadn't just created art. They had remembered how to see. the world itself transformed, not because it had changed, but because they were finally looking through their own eyes. Colours more vivid, relationships more complex, beauty more abundant, and more subtle than ever imagined. The painting before them looked like nothing they had ever made, yet felt more familiar than their own reflection. It carried their true signature, not the practice mark developed for galleries, but the authentic mark of their soul, made visible through pigment and light. Sometimes the most profound transformation isn't learning something new, but unlearning everything that taught you to see less. It is remembering the vision you were born with before you learned to see through others' eyes, reclaiming the authentic palette that was always yours before you borrowed colours that could never truly express your unique way of being in the world.